Welcome, everyone, to another edition of SCRC's Let's Talk Caregiving. I'm your host, Roberto Velasquez, President and CEO of SCRC, and I'm here as always with my co host, Marta Rañon, our Executive Vice President.
Hey, Roberto.
Hey, Marta. Today we have a very special guest, Leah Taylor. Leah Taylor is a master gardener here in San Diego County, and it's the Association for San Diego County. I'm really glad you're here joining us because, we work with so many family caregivers throughout the years. And one of the things that we often do is teach them simple activities that are really helpful in keeping somebody active and engaged, especially when we're dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia. And I know gardening is one of those types of activities. So I'm really happy that a master gardener is here joining us on this podcast today to teach us a little bit about that type of activity. But before we even get started, tell us a little bit about what it means to be a master gardener.
Well, thank you so much for having me. The UC Master Gardener program has been around since 1980. We are an extension of the University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources. We provide home horticultural and pest management research to the public, to our communities throughout all of California. So we are there for your home garden needs, big or small, no matter where you are. And I am their program coordinator. So I provide all of the support and programmatic details so our master gardeners can go out and do what they do in our community. I am also a researcher of wellness gardening.
That sounds so exciting, Leah. I am so glad that you're here because, like Roberto was saying, um, caregiving is very difficult, but also finding activities to do with your loved ones is sometimes a bit of a challenge, especially if they have some sort of dementia, memory loss, or even Alzheimer's. As we're talking here, I am reminding myself of when I was a caregiver and I was caring for my great aunt who had dementia, and gardening was the thing that really motivated her. And of course, not a master gardener, and but I tried to figure out ways that I could incorporate some of these activities with her. And I noticed that when I did that, it she just opened up and she really became engaged. And I remember she would tell me, why don't you sit me next to this tree so I can take some of the weeds out? And it was, a potted tree that was right at her height. It was perfect. So then I started thinking, what if I just get some plants and have her start to plant them with me, and have her teach me, even though I could do that, but just teach me how to do it properly. And man, that was such a great activity, and I really enjoyed that. So I'm hoping to hear more of these stories, Leah, that we can share with our audience today.
Well, you are right on track, bringing gardening to your loved ones who are in need of that mental stimulation. We've been doing it forever, and science is finally catching up to where we are with wellness and using gardening for therapy and for therapeutic activities for not only the loved ones that might need that, but for us as caregivers who need a break, who need a little bit of fresh air. That's where gardening can come in, and you don't have to be a master to do a little bit of gardening. You just need a tiny bit of knowledge. I don't provide care for older adults at the moment, but I do have two tiny small children, and getting them involved with gardening is not only great for them, but it provides some respite for me too. Putting my hands in the dirt and getting out there is great for anyone big or small.
Right now that you said that, Leah, as a mother, as a parent, I know there are a lot of caregivers who are in that sandwich generation, right? Caring for maybe an older adult and have children. This is such a great activity because you can involve everyone. And it's simple enough that you can do it in your backyard. You can even do it in your balcony, even inside the house. It doesn't need to be that involved. So this is great that we're talking about some of this way to incorporate different generations into these activities?
I was with a family member not too long ago who has Alzheimer's, and we were sitting in the porch in our backyard. I was trying to figure out an activity to do with this individual, and I brought out this old, like, I don't know, kind of those Connect Four type of checker games, and I sat there and I brought it out, and I knew she wasn't going to be able to put them in order or anything, but I just thought, just put them in there. And then after about 2 or 3 minutes, I could see her getting real frustrated. And I just thought to myself, of course, she didn't play board games. She didn't do this kind of stuff. So I didn't have anything to garden with or anything like that. But I noticed that she kept looking at the trees, kind of swaying back and forth. And then I started talking to her and I said, look at that tree, look at those leaves, look at this. And all of a sudden she came to life and she started talking about planting, and she started talking about how she used to have a fruit tree and that she loved the fruit tree. And so it brought all these memories, which was really beautiful. And at the same time, it got her a little more oriented to the moment that we were in. And it was really nice kind of change. But it was really interesting to see her go from confusion with this little board game that I brought out just to keep her busy to a discussion about now her planting and having trees with fruits in her yard when she was younger.
Leah, I wanted to ask you, since we're talking about caregiving, and I know our audience is mostly caring for individuals and loved ones, how do you incorporate gardening into let's say regular activity? I think for a lot of us who might not do this, who are not master gardeners, or might not do this on a regular basis, it might seem like a daunting task, right? Where do I begin? I don't have a green thumb. I kill everything I plant, that kind of thing. But how can we start with something like gardening so that it doesn't become a very convoluted process, but it's something that we can look forward to with our loved ones?
Well, I want to say no one has a black thumb. There's no such thing. We all have green thumbs. My motto is right plant in the right place. There are so many plants to start with, and I know it can be really overwhelming with all the choices. You go to a nursery, you just want to buy them all. Or, you don't know if you have sun all day or for 12 hours or 2 hours, or you just don't know where to go. So Master Gardeners are here to help you. We want to say that if you have any gardening questions or problems, you can just give us a call. But for starting off small, that's my suggestion. You don't know where to go, don't go overboard. You can use just a few small things that you already have at home, and then supplement with either one or two plants or seed packets to start with. So while you're home with your loved one and you're looking for maybe a small activity to do, empty an egg carton or a toilet paper roll, some sort of small cardboard container. You can fill that with dirt. If you don't have potting soil, you can go grab some from outside. There's lots. Put that in. Put a couple seeds in there from the dollar store or wherever. You can get packets of seeds for really cheap and see what happens. They are going to love it. You are going to be able to develop fine motor skills with small seeds, and it doesn't have to be precise. They sprinkle them on. Who cares if 2 or 3 or 10 germinate in a small spot?
That is so great that you're telling me this, because really it's bringing up all of these memories that I have with my aunt when I was caring for her. We started developing a little, I don't know, I guess, container garden in the backyard. And so what I did one time is I bought carrot seeds. And my intention was that we were going to cultivate and we were going to really see the seeds through from planting all the way to maybe harvesting. And maybe this was a big goal of mine, but I wanted her to be motivated enough to, let's go see if it's growing, let's go water it, let's weed the area. And what I noticed is she used to love gardening, but as it pertained to flowers. So not necessarily, fruits or vegetables. And so this was something new for her. But she was so excited once we were able to pull some carrots, and they were tiny carrots, nothing big. But then, we washed them and we ate them. And so for her, it was just such a cycle of involvement for her that she took responsibility for. And so now it became like, hey, let's go outside. Instead of me wanting to tell her, let's go outside, she was like, hey, let's look at the garden, see if we have any. I'm like, how did she remember that we have a garden? And so, that's how dementia works. Sometimes she remembered and sometimes she didn't. But either way, when we were out there, it was a visual for her that became curiosity as well.
When we're talking about family caregivers, as Martha said earlier on, they're so overwhelmed, and especially the ones that are dealing with Alzheimer's or dementia. Many of our family caregivers are caring for, actually, the majority are caring for somebody with Alzheimer's or a related dementia. And it becomes so stressful and so time consuming that you don't often have time to do these type of activities or take care of yourself either. We talk about self-care, a lot with our families. And I know gardening is soothing and can help de-stress and relax a little. What type of tips do you have for somebody who's so overwhelmed, and especially as a family caregiver, to make time to do things like this?
You only need 5 minutes. Put on a timer. See how many weeds you can pull with the kids for 5 minutes. How many snails can you collect? How many plants can you water? Make it fun. You can make it engaging. You can make it part of your daily routine without even realizing it. Just putting a couple house plants inside near a sunny window will bring out the gardener in you. You see them, you have them around you, you feel the need to water them, to take care of them. And it's not an extra chore. That's what I hear a lot. Oh, I don't want to have a whole bunch of plants. One more thing to take care of. I'm already taking care of, kids or family, but incorporate that. Have your loved ones help you do those things.
As you're saying this, Leah, I am thinking about maybe plants that are kind of self-sustaining, hardy, but also fun. And what I'm thinking about is milkweed. I remember also not knowing, no idea that there were plants that attracted butterflies, that they specifically attracted butterflies, right? Milkweed being one of them. So I bought a plant, and I remember having my aunt help me pick out the plant. And so, of course, she went by the color of the flowers. And I think it was like a reddish one. And we put it there. And all of a sudden, we started getting all of these butterflies coming to the plant. And so we started talking about the butterflies, much like Roberto was saying, that he experienced. And so we started getting into the story about the butterflies. And then they started leaving their little eggs, and they became, the cocoons. And so now it was exciting for the children, for her to go out and see if the butterfly had been born. And so even that, I mean, we planted it and that was it. We didn't do anything to it, but just seeing the excitement of what's going to happen, is there going to be a butterfly, was also exciting. It's something so simple.
I love that. There are so many plants that you can choose from that spark joy within yourself. You really enjoy maybe red flowers or watching the butterflies. So look for plants that have those attractive qualities. And again, master gardeners have lists upon lists of where to start, how to get started, what plant would go in the right place for your own backyard or sunshine, or if you live coastal or inland or wherever.
So, a lot of people live in smaller homes nowadays. Not everybody has a big giant yard with all the mulch and the big trees and all that areas and stuff for this type of activity. I mean, what happens if somebody has a small apartment and they're caregiving for somebody, or a small home or a townhome where it's just a tiny little patio and it's all cement? What could you do?
You could do so many things to get involved in gardening. Yes, you have a sunny window. That's enough. you have a tiny kitchen, balcony, that's also enough. If you want to create an environment that you can have a large garden, you can go to a community garden that's near you and rent a raised bed and put in vegetables and maybe have some space that you don't have at home and connect with some fellow gardeners. So there's lots of opportunities. There's no space too small or too big to put in a plant or let your imagination go wild.
I also wanted to talk about how a lot of caregivers might think about maybe planting herbs that they cook with. And so it adds to their need to cook, right? And create meals for their loved ones and the people that they're caring for, but also incorporate that activity. So, Leah, I don't know if you have some suggestions. Of course, I'm thinking the easiest thing, the hardiest plant of all, rosemary, right? It's a weed, if not contained. But I also remember thinking, well, if I'm going to cook and if I'm going to do this planting activity, something that's inside the house in a little container, like Roberto was saying, might not have a lot of space. But then when it comes to cooking, I would always incorporate my aunt and remind her, hey, this is the plant that we are growing. We're going to cut some leaves. We're going to incorporate it into the meal. And so that got her excited as well, because, it's part of what we've been doing these last couple of days. So I don't know if you have other suggestions like that.
You sound like a master gardener already. Rosemary is a great suggestion. It's wonderful. It's really hardy. It grows, like you said, like a weed. You can propagate it really easily. But rosemary likes to be outside. And if you don't have a lot of space, and again, I have just a small kitchen windowsill that gets a little bit of sun during the high noon. And I like to grow mint. It grows anywhere, everywhere. And I also love to just pluck a leaf and crush it in my fingers, when I need to just take a mental moment, smell it
Mm.
and refresh myself as I'm walking past it in the kitchen. There's my own personal self-care 5 seconds of smelling something great. Lemon balm. There's herbs are a wonderful place to start. They grow really fast. They don't require a ton of attention or a ton of water, and they can be in that small container altogether. So pick a few when you go shopping and you want to put a few herbs in your kitchen windowsill. You can mix and match. There's not a lot of rules when it comes to putting your herbs together in a container. So go crazy. Pick what smells good, what you use in your cooking.
You mentioned mint, Leah, and my grandmother, at the end, she stayed, several weeks at our home when we were kids, and she used to go from family to family. She had a lot of children, and they were all, of course, grown, and she had grandchildren everywhere, and she always had her area in my mom's backyard, and she would plant mint and lemon. I don't know what it's called, but lemon leaves, and she would always make teas, and they were always really
Lemongrass.
good. And the lemongrass, yes. And so she would make teas and lemon and with the lemongrass and the mint, and of course in Spanish it's yerba buena, which translates to the good herb. But in her case it was mint, and it was just fun. And you just brought back a really great memory of mine as a kid growing up and helping my grandmother pull the mint leaves and then going and make tea inside the house. So thank you for that memory.
You're welcome. Gardening can spark that within us, just a small memory of our past loved one. And, if mint makes that memory for you, that's where you start. That's your plant or whatever that memory might be for each of us.
I am so glad you mentioned that, Roberto, because as you were talking about lemongrass, I had the same experience with my aunt. She used to have a lemongrass plant, and she actually gave me a piece. This was a long time ago before I was her caregiver. And so I have it still in my backyard. And every time I make tea, I think of her. And so it's a great memory. And I'm still keeping the plant alive. So it's kind of like keeping the memory, her memory alive. And it's just so beautiful.
Well, that's wonderful. And again, these activities, they sound so much fun. And here in San Diego, I mean, the weather It's so beautiful. It's spring. I mean, it's just like the best time to get out and get a little bit of sun, and of course wear sunscreen and everything else, but go out there and it's beautiful, and these days are so nice. So thank you so much for joining us, Leah. This has been a fantastic podcast. I'm sure our listeners will agree and like us on the podcast. Well, that's all the time we have left for this edition of Let's Talk Caregiving. To hear more of our podcasts, follow us on your favorite podcasting platforms or visit our website at scrc.care. I want to thank Martha for co-hosting another important discussion, our guest, Leah Taylor, and our audience for tuning in. If you're providing support to a loved one, you don't have to do this alone. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. To connect to our programs and services, visit our website at scrc.care or call us at 1-800-827-1008. If you live outside of San Diego or Imperial counties, visit caregivercalifornia.org. To support our efforts and make a tax-deductible donation, please go to scrc.care and click on the Donate tab. Remember, SCRC is here for you,
caring for those who care for others.
Thank you.